Hello, everyone. It's currently 2 in the morning for me. I haven't recorded in a while, but I wanted to get something out, just, so it's there. You have to be quiet, but yeah. Um, I'm going to be playing Mini Motorways. Topic of discussion will be self improvement, especially after like a breakup, and how motivation for that self improvement, a lot of it has to rely on you valuing yourself over valuing your ex partner. I don't know. I'll get into it. I just want to start the game. I'm a little bit of a frenzy. It's February 1st. My New Year's resolutions have been going okay. Haven't been as good as I wanted them to be. And I think now is the time to really get the bar rolling on making them a daily thought of mine and committing, you know. And part of one of those resolutions was being more open about my thoughts and figuring out life. So today's either going to be a structured rant or a non-structured rant. I don't know. We'll find out and see where my mind wanders. But I just wanted to get it started. So just press play. Infinite bridges. Yep. Yeah. 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 It's fine. Okay. Anyways, so the first. All right. The first. You know, I just want to. I guess I feel like every good lesson is good to just start off with like a story time. And story time for today is, of course, I had posted about, or I had ranted about my ex, all that stuff, a while back, and and that whole thing had gone down, and there was a lot of issues, and I thought I was more over her than I think I actually am. I I think I'm more attached to the person she was to me than I thought I was, and that is a hard pill to swallow for me. Because in thinking that I was over her, I thought I could do anything. I thought I could work on self improvement, and I've realized, especially recently, as she's been more absent from my life, that the self improvement almost feels like I have less motivation for self improvement, um, because I feel like I'm not doing it for anyone. You know, I feel like a lot of my self improvement. Hold on, we have infinite bridges. Or I thought we had infinite bridges, maybe not. Can I not bridge there? I guess not. Okay, well, it's fine. Anyways, I had been placing myself under the assumption that I was over my ex. I didn't have any things to say, and that I felt like she had done me wrong. But now, when I think about her, I think, man, I miss this person a lot, and it's been a month, so I mean, I should have had time to like end my feelings and move on from someone who really doesn't matter in my life all that much anymore. But I still have feelings, um, and I almost want her back, but I also cannot m- make myself manifest it. Like I can't push myself to think about her enough to where I feel like I could do anything and feel like I could somehow manage to bring her back. And I think with that, um, and with that, I don't know, or I cannot find the motivation right now to, for the capacity to self improve, right? Because a lot of my New Year's resolutions were, I had a whole Google Doc. It's all about this is gonna make me the best me I can be. And after today, all I could think to myself was, I have, and it's been 1 month in. Realistically, I feel like I should be a lot farther. I haven't even mapped out most of the stuff I want to do, but I'm finding myself struggling to find the motivation to be the best me I can be. And I fear that I'm struggling to find the motivation because I don't have my ex-girlfriend to work for. Because I feel like a lot of my, and I listen to a lot of music, so I like to connect my life to music a lot. You know, Tyler November, I was like, thinking like, man, what is my November? And I realized my November was November of this year. And I think, and I would say to myself, well, why is my November the November of 2025, the most recent November? And it's because I had a happy girlfriend, a happy relationship, like good friends. I still do have good friends, but I feel like in January everything is just slowed. I feel like I haven't been able to live the life I've wanted to live in the past few months because of this change in routine, and that's hurting me, whether internally or you know, I don't know. It's just I can sense it in myself that I am struggling to find motivation because I feel like I don't have anyone to work for but myself. And then that leads me into the main topic I want to be here for is finding motivation to be the best you can be in a time where you feel like you have no one to work for but yourself. And I think a lot of that comes down to valuing yourself and your life as equal or more valuable than other people's. And I know that sounds bad, but when you like, and it sounds bad, right? You can't just say, oh, you can't just say, oh, my life is inherently more valuable. No, I think it's to your personal growth. For a little bit, you need to have a bit of an ego to tell yourself, my life matters more than anyone else's life matters right now. And what I'm struggling with personally is I'm struggling because there is no one else I feel like I should be working for right now, right? Because there is no one else that I feel like I should be working for right now. The only person I could say to find any motivation is within myself. And I feel like a lot of that self motivation right now is absent because in past I have not self improved for me per se, but I've self improved for the people around me or the people I care about, right? So for example, like let's just take gym as a simple example. The first time I really got into going to the gym and setting up a routine and actually getting fit, and seriously, like taking it seriously, right? Not just like, in school athletics and all that stuff. The first time would say I actually legitimately took it completely seriously was the time after my first breakup with my first girlfriend. Okay? That is when I would consider like the first breakup. Can I put a motorway there? No, I can't. Sorry, that's when I would consider like me finding motivation to be in the gym to improve on myself. Okay, yeah, that one's just gonna have to stay there. I can't do anything with that house. And after that first break, I very remember distinctly feeling like, wow, I'm not good enough for her. So to be better, I have to get jacked, right? Like that was the simple, and I stick to it. I got a lot more fit after that. I hit basically my weekly goals for about 2 or 3 months straight, and then um, a lot of other stuff happened, and I fell out of love with the gym, and it happened again and I feel like when I was going to the gym to do that stuff, rather than saying I'm going to the gym to keep myself fit, I was saying I'm going to the gym so I can look physically appealing for other girls, like for girls, right? And I feel like that was a bad motivation to have. Hold on, this just got good for me, right? Like I feel like that was the wrong idea to latch onto. Like I shouldn't have been. Oh, once I get jacked, I'm gonna be pulling all these girls, right? Rather, I should have been. Once I get jacked, think of how happy think of how happy I'll be, or think of how much like proud of myself I'm gonna be once I get fit, right? And that's the mindset I feel like I should have had from the beginning. Now, right, and I still don't feel like that's like I still don't feel like I am self improving purely for me. And part of the reason why I think that is because I'm unable to find motivation for myself. And part of the reason I'm unable to find motivation for myself and what I think it is that I don't like I can't find motivation for myself because I'm not doing it for me, right? Like I feel like and I think the issue here is how do you find motivation to be the best you can be without the idea that me being a better me will help other people, or not necessarily help, but help other people's view of me, or the ego side of things, right? When in retrospect, you should realistically be thinking, hey, I'm going to become a better me or for just law of nature, I've been trying to get into philosophy lately, and one of my personal favorites right now is Marcus Aurelius. Is a German, not a German, sorry, excuse me, I'm a little tired. He's a Greek, or not Greek. Oh my gosh, man, he's the Roman. Probably he's probably regarded as one of the most greatest or successful, kindest Roman emperors of his time. And he released, of course, Meditations, his little book. And yeah, I've been reading, I've been looking into some core principles. And one of the big things that he had propagated or had spread the word was that all men or every human is made, made like nature makes things to follow their role, and that us as humans, it is our almost natural duty to fulfill those roles in nature. And in fulfilling those roles, like, or part of the duty of fulfilling those roles is being the best and kindest and most generous person that you can be, right? That's what Marcus Aurelius believed was the human role in nature, because that was what nature had built us to do. Now, taking that
and applying it to a scenario like this, where you are trying to find motivation for yourself. I think the exact quote that I really latched onto was, "Stop discussing how to be a great man and be one." They stop discussing what makes a great man, just be one. I can't remember the exact quotations, but it's something along those lines. And even just sitting here now, like me talking about like, hey, how do you get out of a situation like this? I feel like is going against that point. But I also feel like it's good to discuss this because again, it's 2 in the morning. Realistically, I couldn't be doing anything right now to build a better me, but I also couldn't sleep right now. That's why I hopped on the recording after probably 3 or 4 weeks of nothing because I couldn't sleep and I needed something to talk about. And finding what the hell? Hold on, that was a weird place to put a house. Anyways, and in finding, you know, those. So basically, right. I'm kind of sidetracking right now. I'm kind of just trying to share some of the stuff I learned. Point is, the main thing right now that I want to focus on is finding motivation in a time where you feel like you're the only person you're working for. Right? And I don't know the best way to word that. But point is, when, at least for me, and I feel like this could apply pretty generally, when you don't have a lot of, when you don't have the people, like the people around you, if bettering yourself doesn't really impact them very heavily, then you can't find motivation through them, right? Or alternatively, trying to impress them. If bettering yourself doesn't, let's say, quote unquote, give you accolations or shit. If oh god, this might be bad to get out of. Um, okay, we're good. Anyways, so if getting right, what was I saying? I was talking about. Oh yeah, okay. So getting motivation in a time like if let's say what you're trying to get better at, right? So for example, like I want to get better at cooking. That was one of my New Year's resolutions. I want to be a better cook, right? With that comes the responsibility of me learning how to cook and me working on it on my own. But me learning how to become a better cook and cook more recipes isn't necessarily going to help other people like it would just help me personally. And I think that is where a lot of, at least me, of course, and I feel like this could apply generally. God damn it. Um, is that generally, right? You like one person doesn't like. I gotta think of the best way to put this. Oh, that's a mountain. Oh, I didn't realize that was a mountain. Well, okay. Well, we might be fried then. Okay. I'd rather just do a different map. Anyways, so you're trying to find motivation in a time where pursuing your goals doesn't necessarily directly help other people, right? So like let's say just like theoretically, let's say I did was still dating, going to the gym and getting lean and more physically attractive, and that's not the whole point of going to the gym, but right, that would be one of the benefits, would help my girlfriend because that would make her more physically attracted to me, which boosts the relationship, right? So that isn't necessarily improving me for myself, but improving me for her, right? So now that's cut out of the equation. Now going back to the gym, and this is why I think I've been able to consistently stay in the gym, is that I'm doing this rather than just doing it for myself. I'm doing it for external validation from other people. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing Right. Now, let's say you don't have either of these. Another one of my let's go back to the cooking one. My resolution for wanting to get better at cooking. Obviously, don't have the girlfriend. I can't, like, that's just an example. But it's not like I'm gonna be cooking food for my friends, right? Really, I'm trying to get better to cook for me, so I can eat better foods and potentially in the longer run, in the now. And I just want to stick to the now because that'll get me to my next point. In the current state of things, me getting better at cooking doesn't necessarily help anyone that I know directly. Double the number of bridge. Okay. Right. So let's say I get good at cooking. That's not going to directly help me or help anyone I know in a significant way. Right. Sure, maybe it's a cool little like trick I can do, like, hey, or like, gesturing, like, hey, let me cook you something, or maybe rare scenarios where like cooking would be a viable thing, but that's not necessarily something that's going to significantly improve other people's lives. Okay. Now, external validation. It's not, again, it's the same thing. Cooking is a very personal thing because really, realistically, you're only cooking for yourself. And the times you do cook for other people are, especially at my age, very rare and spread out. Because most times, of course, you go out for dinner or it's just like snacks or party snacks. And cooking is really just at that point a thing. It's an internal hobby, basically, is what I'm saying. So I think this applies for a lot of general hobbies where really truly is just for yourself. Now, someone like me who struggles to find motivation to improve myself because a lot of my values hinder so greatly on, one, people's perception of me, and two, the people I'm close to, that it's very difficult for me to find motivation for things that I want to do or that I know will make me a better human being overall. Where, how do I put this? I struggle to find motivation for things that will make me a better human being overall because in certain aspects of my life that I want to improve, like cooking or trying to get into philosophy, a lot of it is internal and really only applies to me, right? It really only makes me better. It will not significantly change the lives of people around me if I get good at cooking or if I get really deep into philosophy, right? That is really, truly just an internal success for myself. I'm going to turn the game down just because I get really nervous about it being too loud. It should be okay, though. Now, again, finally getting to the main topic. How do you find motivation to do these things, right, when you're someone who does struggle with these ideas of like, oh, it only matters if I receive, external validation or it improves what's close to me. And I think, in personal experience, one of the ways I think I've subconsciously tried to hinder this fact is flaunting or almost like gloating about personal achievements that I've made, within these strides, I guess you say, right? So it's like to say, okay, getting into philosophy, for example, I like to tell people, hey, I've gotten really into philosophy. Like I gotta could do some, I want to go back to like watching my philosophy video or all that stuff. There's a lot of yellows. Anyways, and with that, that is a way I've been able to find some motivation because I'm doing it performatively. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm almost doing self improvement performatively because I'm doing it for the validation of others rather than the internal growth that it'll provide me on my own. Now, staying with me here, okay? I don't bridge. Stay with me. I feel like that is one way I've managed to loosely find motivation to do some of the things that are internal validation, right? Like cooking. I feel like this is also, I guess, it's more of the dieting aspect of my thing. I did a lot of math for, I had just like one peanut butter measurement I had to calculate. I remember I used something I learned from my chemistry class, right? So, and with that, it was almost performative because I was gonna be like, oh hey, let me go show this to my chemistry teacher. The ways I've used her almost class that's helped me learn in real life, right? So rather than actually doing it because I wanted to get better at dieting, I did it because I wanted to receive. Ah, damn it. This sucks. By the way, I just like I'm not. I don't know how I'm gonna get past this. That was a really bad spot. Ah. Anyways, I'm just gonna pause it and finish my thought. Okay, right. And that's one of the two ways I figured out how to motivate myself. One, of course, that flaunting and bloating, right? Be like, oh, let me do. I'm like, I talking with like friends or something. It's like, oh, I'm doing this, and this, or like, you know, it's hard to accurately depict what I'm trying to say right now. But I think the point is getting across, right? I'm bloating or bragging about some of the strides I've made, and with that, that's the only way I'm managing to find motivation in those around me, right? So, now continuing. So, because that's one of the only ways, and I think here's the other way that I would have been able to find motivation, and I'm gonna get to that in a second, because then this is a lot more of a meaningful, and this is one of the like little life things I've lived by, and I'll get to that in a second. So, and back to the first way, I would consider that mostly bad, and I don't remember where I read this. I'm assuming it's probably on TikTok or something. I don't remember where I read this sentence, but it really struck a chord with me. When you're growing a garden, you're not supposed to pick a flower and show it off. Like the first flower that blooms, you can't pick it off, and you can't pick every flower that blooms in your garden and show it off, because then you won't have a garden at all, right? So let's say and I think that applies to the real world. Like if you're trying to grow the best you can be, your garden in this scenario, once a flower blooms or a success happens to you, rather than plucking it and showing it off to other people, or in this instance, bragging about your success to other people, that almost defeats the motivation. And I think this is kind of where the analogy gets a little bit shaky. But of course, when you pluck all these flowers, you're eventually left with no garden. It's an empty garden. It's just dirt because you showed off all these flowers. And I think the way that translates into real life, because rather than showing off some of the success you've had, because you do keep that success, right? Like success doesn't necessarily die like flowers do. But rather than that, I think rather than losing success, you lose motivation, because your brain has already processed the internal or the external validation from other people for a minor success, and because you have received validation for a minor success, and this is just I'm not like a psychologist or anything, but because you've received validation for minor success, and this is where I think brain pattern, like different people say it, right? Either you can say, hey, look at the success I've achieved, I'm going to keep doing it because I'm receiving external validation, or your brain says, oh, job's done, I received my validation, now I don't like need to provide as much motivation to do something anymore, right? And I think those are the two ways you can take it. Personally, I am definitely more of the second option, right? When I receive validation for something I did well, I oftentimes either, whether it be due to cockiness, laziness, just overall unwillingness to do my job or do, what's good for me for self improvement, I almost lose that in the pursuit of trying to receive external validation, right? And that's why I think basing a lot of your self improvement journey on other people, whether how they perceive you or just because you think it's better for them, I think that's where things start to crumble. Now, the way I think the best way to get around this, at least for me, and I think this covers goes a little bit backstory. So personally, I am a very, I grew up in a household that's very family centric, if that makes sense, right? Like my parents are basically high school sweethearts. There's a lot of, and I lived next to a perfect life, right? This is like if the egg theory is real or whatever, this is probably like a top 1 or 2% life that I could live, is my life currently. And with that, I have, throughout a lot of, I think, my development as, just a human and as a child, as a kid, I have almost had an idealized version of what the American household should look like in terms of family dynamics. And that personally, and that has led me in my mind to think that the ultimate goal of my life, and I think I still follow by this, is that I want to have kids. I want to have a happy family, and I want to provide for that family the same thing that my current family provides for me. I want it to be basically a near identical, you know, almost an identical dynamic between my future family and my current family. So in doing that, I compare a lot of my childhood right now to the childhood my parents had, especially because they knew each other. A lot of the foundational principles of our family dynamic is kind of built on their relationship through college and even like late into high school. And almost all of the old stories I hear of them, I don't really hear any super interesting, like crazy developmental stories from either of them past their 25s, you know, and a lot of those stories are built on their, you know, perception of their journey through high school, which not only were they quote unquote high school sweethearts, which is a lot of what I compare my relationships to, but they were also born during a time of almost the peak Americana vision of high school, right? Where it was like late 90s, early 2000s high school, where it's very just like, I don't know how to describe it, but especially where I live, it's like very suburbia I don't know. Like if I had like they had basically the near definition of like a picture perfect movie, you know, like high school life, right? That's how I would consider it. I don't know if that's how they'd consider it. That's how I would consider it. And of course, I'm being, we usually get spoon fed just like the ideal parts of their high school life because no one likes to tell bad stories. So I also think that that's kind of impacted me a little bit where I really only hear the good and I compare a lot of that old high school vibes to my current one. Right, now that that's out of the way, and where you kind of understand where I'm coming from, like my whole goal is to create a similar life for my future family that my current family has for me. A lot of that right now in my brain, whether it be subconsciously or consciously, right now I believe that a lot of the reason why our family dynamic is so good is because of things set or created in precedent years, decades ago when my parents were still in high school and they were still in their developmental years because ultimately your developmental years are the most personality driving years, and because of those developmental years that they had, that is, I want to recreate that as best to my ability so that my future family can of course have as close of that replica. You know what I mean? It's kind of it's hard to explain, but I think you understand the idea. With that, that is the way I have been kind of trying to find motivation for some things. Where, because obviously in a modern world, it's a lot harder to create those kinds of classic high school stories where you just do dumb stuff and dumb stuff goes on. Because a lot of the dumb stuff that goes on nowadays is usually just like drugs and or not drugs, not like light drugs, like probably like weed and like drinking and stuff, right? And I wouldn't consider those too bad, but I would consider them boring, right? I would consider those inherently boring, quote unquote wild stories to tell your kids in the future, right? Like those are just inherently boring. Like, oh yeah, we sat around in a room and just smoked pot, right? In my personal opinion, that's a boring high school story where I am like I'm trying to be a person where I'm creating really memorable high school stories. Now, with that is where if I can't obviously can control the environment around me or the people around me. I can't change them. What I can do is improve myself, which will create those stories. So, for example, I'm trying to get into the gym. I'm trying to get ripped. That'll be a story that I can mold into a lesson for my future kids about like determination. Never even not trying to give up. Or cooking, a skill. Again, it's just something cool that I learned. I can share with my kids. Like, oh, here's how I got into cooking. Here's how me and my dad bonded over cooking. Here's some incidents or stories, or how it helped me. Right? Basically, rather than necessarily only creating those stories, starting with the building blocks of it helps create future tools that you can use to create interesting like life stories further down the road. You know what I mean? It's almost like in a video game where like you have to be a certain level to unlock certain dialogues. So you have to be good at certain things to have certain pathways through life, right? And that's where I feel like the that's where I feel like you should be pulling your development from. Now, and I think and that's obviously coming from someone who's very family oriented, right? He wants to, I want to have a very successful family. And how I would put this in the minds of other people, and again, I'm not like a psychologist or anything, but how I would think about it if I were someone who's not family oriented, it's almost just stories for yourself. You're creating stories for yourself to look back on and be like, oh yeah, here's when I did this, or here's when I did that. And yes, obviously it's a little bit of external validation, but it's also personal validation because you can look back at your own memories whenever you want. You could be sitting in a shitty office meeting and you just think back to the time like, oh, here's when I got really into cooking, or here's when I got really into playing the guitar. And I think that's the mindset you have to have when a lot of your motivation relies on other people. The motivation what your motivation should hinge on, if you can't get motivation through pure self improvement, you should get motivation based on, I'm not doing this for me, I'm doing this for me in the future, right? And you could go either way. I think both frame of minds work well, but I think saying, I'm doing it for me in the future is the best way to approach that, especially if you're someone who struggles to find motivation for yourself. Because when doing things for you, and I'm just gonna like, I should probably plus play so there's like some stimulation. But when doing things for you, right, you're almost put. Okay, I gotta pause it because I can't focus when I'm paying attention to both. I'll finish this once I'm done recording because I'm almost done, right? The whole point is, as someone, this is coming from someone who struggles to find motivation in himself. If you are struggling to find motivation purely based on self improvement and doing what's best for you in the current moment because you are so used to finding motivation in improving other people's lives, when you don't have anyone else's lives to improve, you should switch that motivation from you specifically to you in the future. Your future self, whether it be through memories or through opportunities presented by the future, right? Rather than improving for any one person or any you specifically, you improve for the person that's future you. You can almost separate them as two different people. You and the person that quote unquote you'll be in a year or two are two completely different people. They are not the same people. So realistically, you're not doing it for yourself. You are doing it for another person. That another person just happens to look very similar to you, have a very similar personality to you, which almost, in my opinion, makes it better because you're making another person's life better who's been through the same stuff that you have. So you can feel their pain almost not one to one because they may have, new experiences, but you can feel very similar reactions to things as they have, so you know how it feels, which gives you more motivation. So you should look at doing things for self improvement, not for you, but for someone who knows what you're going through, or someone who feels what you're going through. Because a lot of time it's very easy to lie down and give up and just say, I quit, I'm done, I can't do this. What's writing on the line? Oh, it's just me. Do I care that much about my dignity? No. Rather, in the mindset of, I can't lie down and give up because I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for a person who feels all of the pain that I feel, or all of the mental health issues that I feel, or all of the physical health like issues that I felt, or all of the trauma I've been through. You're not doing it for you. You're doing it for someone who knows what it's like to be you, right? And that's the best way I look at it. And I think the natural extension of this conversation is finding ways to love yourself, because once you love, I don't know, this is another video topic. I'll probably talk about this tomorrow or next time I feel like recording. But yeah, I think the next extension of this argument is, well, I don't value me or my future self, and that becomes a case of, do you love your life? And I think that's a very deep extension. I don't want to drag this video. It's already 40 minutes long, and I have to go to bed. I have stuff to do tomorrow. But yeah, that is how I would put it. Just a final frame of mind, just so I can like put like a timestamp. Truly, the final thing. It's just a summary of this whole video. When you are someone who finds motivation for self-improvement, no matter what it may be, gym, cooking, hobbies, music, all that stuff. If you find your motivation with the intent of improving another person's life with your self-improvement, or receiving external validation and praise from someone else, and you are put in a situation where your self-improvement cannot be motivated by one of those two things, you must find a way to motivate yourself. But when you cannot motivate yourself, you must believe in you must believe that improving yourself is going to better the life of you in the future. Right? Because future you is not really you. It's just someone who is a lot like you and knows the pain that you're going through right now, no matter what be. They understand your struggles, and they've made it past your struggles. You know? That's almost comforting. This is a different topic. That statement just comforted me a little bit. That future me, that there's someone throughout history who knows exactly what it's like to experience what it's. There's someone out there who knows exactly what it's like to be in your position, and they made it through. Exactly same position, and they made it through. Some shit. I didn't. Oh, that was good. All right. Well, I mean that's everything. That's my whole argument. Wow, I did not expect to end on that. Maybe I'll dive into that later. Maybe I'll post about that on TikTok or something. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, thank you for. I don't know. There's probably not gonna be anybody listening to this. It's just my journal. Later, y'all. Have a good night. If anyone's listening.